Pete Rogers Jr. Pete, before we even get into it, I guess we've got a fight here that we have no idea who Merabh Davi Lee's opponent is going to be. That is the big question mark right now. Maybe it's Gustavo Lopez. Ray Borg pulled out of it due to a family emergency. And so it looks like it's going to be Gustavo Lopez. He's got a little contract issue right now that he's got to deal with. But that is really the big news as we're, less than 12, 14 hours away from weigh-ins.
Talk about a headache. And it's just created a mess for the replacement and the UFC right now. I'm sure they'll come to terms with something or find somebody that will step in against Merabh. But let me tell you, you couldn't ask for a worst possible matchup than facing Merabh on 1 day or 2 days notice. So good luck to whoever that is.
Yeah, good luck coming on short notice where the man that has 39 takedowns in UFC bantamweight competition, coming off a fight where he had 12 takedowns. That's going to be the defense. But of course, we're going to break this slate down here over the next hour. If you do have any questions, leave it in the YouTube chat. Be sure to give us a thumbs up. That really does help us a lot. But Pete, obviously the main event, Jessica Eye and Cynthia Calvillo. This is a fight because of the price points of both these fighters. 8,300 for Jessica Eye, 7,900 for Cynthia Calvillo. I think it's twofold, and I'll get your thoughts on this. A, I believe this is a fight that you have to roster. I just don't think you can really pass on because of it being a 5-round fight. If it was a 3-round fight, maybe it's a little bit of a different story. But as much as I know you don't like stacking fights, this could be a fight you stack.
Yeah, it could be the exception to the rule for me. And, I'll probably stack it in a few lineups just because of the price. I mean, both of them are super affordable at 8,300 and 7,900. It logically makes sense because female fights tend to go to the decision more often than not. You have well-priced fighters, an evenly matched bout, I would say. And I think Jessica Eye is going to look to keep it on the feet. That's no secret. She doesn't want to get taken down by Cynthia Calvillo because Cynthia Calvillo on the mat, she does have some exceptional skills where she can really just dominate with her grappling and ground and pound. If she does get Jessica Eye down there, then you could be looking at a potential problem. I'm leaning a little bit more towards Calvillo based on the 7,900 discount. I understand why a lot of people are heavy on Jessica Eye. It makes sense. She's seen it all in the division. She's used to that weight class, used to fighting heavier. And if you look at her resume, she's really fought the who's who. But as far as DFS, I think it's a pretty even fight. I would be absolutely shocked if we saw a finish from Jessica Eye. Thinking finish. I think it leans a little bit more towards Cynthia Calvillo via the submission route.
And, of course, one of the things that our listeners can check out right now on the screen is Pete's spreadsheet. It's also available on awesemo.com, and it is free, so you can check out the great spreadsheet that Pete does put together here. I think one of the concerning things for me with Cynthia Calvillo is the fact of, another new gym for her. Of course, she was with Team Alpha Male for a while. When Justin Buchholz left, she went with him. She was over Tiger Muay Thai. Now she is at AKA there in San Jose. I think the question I have is, I think the path for her to getting the victory to me is getting it on the ground. That's not saying she can't win a striking match. I just think that the higher probability of her winning is getting the fight to the ground. But Jessica Eye, she has, when she came to the UFC as a 35er, she was fighting a weight class up because there was no 125-pound division. Then once that came in, she moved down to 25. And look, if you take Valentina Shevchenko out of the mix, which obviously you can't, but if you were going to say who is the best women's 125-pound fighter in the UFC not named Valentina Shevchenko, I think 8 out of 10 people would say Jessica Eye.
Yeah, I can't fault you for saying that. The girl's been around for a while. She's fought a lot of talented fighters, and she's learned a lot. I think in all of her fights, it's kind of prepared her for an up-and-comer such as Calvillo. And Calvillo is no spring chicken, but she is one of the up-and-comers of the division now that she's at, basically forced to be at 125 pounds because she has difficulty making the lower weight class. I think Calvillo could have the speed advantage here, and I think Jessica Eye has the power advantage. And I don't know, the stronger strike. She seems to be the stronger athlete. But I think if Calvillo can get on her bike and move around a little bit and, pump out some volume, and try to mix up Jessica Ai and work in some takedowns, you're looking at, some nice potential there at 7,900. If it stays striking, I definitely think that they're both going to have their moments, and Jessica Ai could very well, win a decision. I think it's a razor close fight here, super thin, and I wouldn't be surprised seeing it go to the distance and being a split decision, being so close. But give me Calvillo with a little discount. I like the takedown potential for me.
You look at Jessica Ai's last fight, she did show the volume against Arujo with 98 significant strikes. Now, if you go back to her fight against Faria, excuse me, she had 3 takedowns, 3 advances in that fight. So that's obviously something you're going to look at, take into the ground. Should mention over on FanDuel, $18 for Jessica Ai and $16 for Cynthia Calvillo. By the way, if you do have any questions on the fights, leave them right here on the YouTube chat, and we will get to those questions. I mean, it's a straight pick 'em fight. I don't think you can go wrong either way, but I just ultimately feel like this is, I think there's fights throughout this card that you look at and say, hey, I probably got to roster somebody in that fight. I mean, look, we're brutally honest. Is this the most exciting card on paper? No, it's not. But these are the type of cards that more times than not tend to deliver for the UFC.
Yeah, it's true. The ones that you think suck end up being amazing, performances from top to bottom. And for me, like, again, the 7,000 options aren't nice, and I need somebody in the 7,000 range that can give me a finish or give me a lot of points. And based on the 5 rounds, I'm hoping that Calvillo can do that for some of my lineups. Now, I'm not going as heavy on this card as I have been, because obviously it's not the best card in the world. But I think that even stacking the main event isn't a terrible strategy.
Lamar in the chat says, who will the smaller cage help in this fight and this card? Obviously, I think one of the things about the smaller cage, and I thought it was John Anik had a tweet the other day, and I'll pull it up while you talk a little bit here. But for the most part, people say, oh, it helps the grapplers. But I think what it's really done is it's forced engagement in the fight.
Yeah, 100%. So if people are elusive strikers, or they move around a lot, or they don't have the highest volume, I think the smaller cage really increases their output a little bit more, because they're forced to. Maybe they don't have the best footwork, so they are basically standing in front of each other more often than they're used to. In this situation, I would imagine that it would help Cynthia Calvillo based on the grappling. I honestly would, or at least getting closer to Jessica Ai. Now, if she gets her hands on Jessica Ai, I don't think it's going to be so easy to take her to the mat. I think Jessica Ai does have some decent takedown defense, but we have seen her put on her back plenty of times in the UFC. And even though Calvillo is coming up a weight class, she is over at AKA, and they have unbelievable wrestling over there. They may not have the best women's program over there, but that doesn't mean that she's not working with the guys, and she's not over there, going through all the classes and everything. So I slightly favor Cynthia Calvillo. Like I said, it's a pick 'em, and that's obviously why we're struggling with this top pick. But for me, it's Calvillo.
In terms of the size of the cage, and this comes from Anik's tweet the other day from one of their coordinating producers, Zach. The 25-foot octagon is 30.5% smaller than the 30-foot octagon.
Yeah.
The 25-footer is 518 square feet, where the 30-footer is 745 square feet. Obviously, that's a big deal, and it could be very much a big deal in the co-main event between Marvin Vettori and Carl Roberson. Of course, this fight was supposed to happen back last month in one of the cards in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Carl Roberson misses weight. Next day, he gets pulled from the event. The DraftKings lines is very similar. The first time around, it was 8,900 for Marvin Vettori and 7,300 for Carl Roberson. This time, it's 8,800 for Vettori, 7,400 for Roberson, $19 for Vettori on FanDuel, $12 for Carl Roberson. Marvin Vettori over a 2-1 betting favorite. Look, I think we broke down this fight last time. It hasn't changed, even though there's more heat with this fight now. These two guys clearly not liking each other. But Vettori, I mean, look, he's a better overall fighter. He has a better, well-rounded game. You would imagine that he is going to try to grapple. The only, I think, concern I have, Pete, is will he fight emotional at all in this fight? And could he find himself and allow himself to get in a kickboxing matchup where that is where Carl wants the fight to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're both pretty angry and upset with each other. So I think as much as Vettori could, let his emotions get the best of him, I think the same thing could happen for Roberson. And if Vettori gets lulled into a striking match, there's danger there going up against a power kickboxer and Carl Roberson. But I do think that Vettori is fast enough and, slick enough to avoid a lot of the big shots from the plotting but powerful Carl Roberson. Now, Roberson could go out there and try to knock off, Vettori's head because he made him upset as well, which could leave him open to getting taken down. So I think it works both ways. I tend to favor Marvin Vettori here at 8,800. The price tag is a little high, a little steep for a guy who's not known for finishes, but in a matchup where Carl Roberson really struggles on the ground defensively. Now, Roberson does have some good offensive ground game, like good submissions, but when he does hit the mat and he's put on his back, he does look pretty bad, like a fish out of water. And I think that a big guy in Marvin Vettori, who has such a cardio advantage over Roberson, should be in the fight from bell to bell and could literally do what he wants against Carl Roberson if he avoids the big shot. Now, anything can happen in a fight, but more likely than not, Vettori is going to get a pretty dominant win here. Even at 8,800, it's just, does he pay off the salary? Does he have enough significant strikes or takedowns? But the submission prop for Vettori isn't a bad choice here because we have seen Roberson fold under pressure, and I think that Vettori might be able to put him in those situations.
Yeah, that to me is kind of, we always talk about this all the time, is you when you have a fighter that has the ability to take the fight to the ground,
Yeah.
it's will he go for it? What are both these guys going to look like on the scale tomorrow night or tomorrow morning in Las Vegas? Obviously we saw Carl miss weight the first time. That to me is a question mark, but you've mentioned, a little while ago that the under 8,000 options, there's not a lot that stick out to you. If you look, I would expect Carl Roberson is going to be, have low ownership and looking over at our Osmo DFS ownerships. We have Marvin Vettori at 27%. And for Carl Roberson at 21%. At 27%, I like that number in terms of Marvin Vettori, just because, I think that he's got a good chance to score big here.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's a steal if you can get him at that percentage. In saying that, you have to circle the matchups where if the 7K guy does win, it's most likely be a finish. And I think Roberson is one of those guys that you can circle where if he does win, he's getting a knockout win over Marvin Vettori. I don't see it any other way. I don't see him winning a decision. I literally see him only clipping Vettori and getting a win that way. So he might be somebody you want to take a stab at if you're struggling to find a 7K option.
Get this question here coming in on the chat from Hunter. He goes, Pete, thoughts on 3 cuts in 3 weeks for Vettori, as well as being off peak, was best 3 weeks ago?
That's a good point. And, that's the X factor that we really don't know. And you can't really judge or determine. It's no different than the quarantine training. You don't really know how much people are training. And that's the X factor. These fights are nuts, Jason. Like, literally, we got underdogs coming through. You got people, a fight getting scrapped every week. You got Vettori, who's already supposed to be fighting, and then it gets, the fight gets scrapped, and now he's back here. So it depends on how much weight he's cutting. And I think that's why he didn't take the fight against Kevin Holland when Kevin Holland was, volunteering, saying, hey, look, I'm right here. I'll gladly step up and fight you. It's probably a lot for him to continue to cut, and that could zap your energy or affect your gas tank. Now, as far as peak-wise, I don't know. I don't know about that because Vettori's been in the cage and he's been around it. So I feel like that's an advantage as well. And, as at least I know he can make weight and he's not missing weight, whereas Roberson might be killing himself to do it. So, I mean, for both guys, I think that the weight cut is something to monitor, but I wouldn't worry too much about peaking.
Of course, if you do have a question about the fights, like Hunter has and a couple other people have, leave a question right here on YouTube. Do want to let you know about a giveaway that we have going on, as we are giving away an Osmo Plus weekly pass. All you got to do is subscribe to the podcast. on your favorite podcasting platform, whether it may be, maybe it's Apple Podcasts, maybe it's Spotify, maybe it's iHeartRadio, Stitcher, whatever it may be. Subscribe to the podcast channel, and then step 2, leave a rating, a rate, and leave a 5-star review for our channel with your Awesemo Plus username or Twitter handle. You'll be entered to win. One winner will be announced on Friday, which is tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So that's your chance to win an Awesemo Plus weekly package. Also got some other great offers that do expire tonight. 20% off the PGA Annual with promo code Schwab. Also, you can get 10% off the Platinum Yearly with the promo code Summer. As I mentioned, both of those do come to an end tonight. But Pete, moving on down the card, this is a fight that initially was Merabh Davi Lee versus Ray Borg. Ray Borg has pulled out of the fight card due to a family emergency. He did tweet that a picture of his son. So you do say thoughts and prayers out to Ray and his family. Gustavo Lopez was then the guy that was turned to, that he was going to take on Merabh Davi Lee. Then Campbell McLaren, the CEO of Combate Americas, goes, whoa, hold on. He's under contract. And now Gustavo Lopez's manager, Danny Rubenstein, has come out and said, I screwed up. I screwed up here. So we'll see whether or not that this fight ultimately happens. But obviously, on Saturday, when we do live before lock at 5 p.m. Eastern time, we'll have much more clarification on this. But, before everything changes, Merabh was the guy I was building lineups around.
Yeah, I can't blame you. I mean, somebody didn't do their homework, and what a bad screw up. It just sucks. But back to the fight, Davi, whoever he's fighting against, I like Davi. And that's the truth. It's because of his wrestling output. The guy will be shooting about 20 takedowns a fight, looking to take you to the mat. And if he gets you there, he'll hold you there, beat you up. But if somehow you work your way back to your feet, he's going to take you down multiple times. And, the man he averages almost 8 takedowns a fight. That's 8 successful takedowns a fight. Okay. Not talking about how many he's attempting. So he is an animal. He's a DFS stud. He's like the Colby Covington, Kamaru Usman type of guy that we like to build our lineups around. DraftKings favors grapplers. Outside of getting knocked out or clipped with something, I like Davi. I don't know how you don't like Davi. The problem is the price tag, $9,200. It makes sense, for his output. But maybe he fights a lower level fighter who doesn't get back to his feet like a Ray Borg would. So he only lands 3 or 4 takedowns in a fight rather than, 7, 8, or 9. And I know those numbers sound ridiculous, but those are accurate numbers of what he's doing in fights. So I think that you should roster Davi in more lineups than not. But also temper your expectations a little bit. I think he's a cash staple. But for GPP, maybe he doesn't reach that, that ceiling that we're accustomed to because he's fighting a lower level guy who just gets held down and pounded on, and he doesn't get 6, 7, 8, 9 takedowns. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, when you look at in bantamweight competition, he has 39 takedowns. That is the most in history of the UFC. Number 2 is 2 fighters, Uriah Faber and Ricky Simón. They have 26. So it kind of gives you an idea of how many more takedowns that he does have. I mean, look, it's, to me, if Merabh ultimately is on this card, you got to look at him, as you mentioned, on DK. It is so favored towards grapplers. Look over on FanDuel, $20 is Davi Lee's price tag. I mean, look, I think, and you bring up a great point of, is it going to be something where, he goes 3 rounds and he constantly just keeps getting takedown or takedown. I believe I saw the number is he has 87 takedown attempts in UFC competition. It's crazy. I know in talking to Casey Kenny, who was a previous opponent of his, and he said, he's like, I knew the takedowns were coming, but I didn't realize the way they were coming and how he kind of mixes it up.
Yeah.
So I think you got to look at Davi, when you're looking at those 9K options, because I mean, that's what when we're putting our lineups together, immediately you're going to look at those 9,000 options and say, who do you feel the most comfortable with? And to me, Davi is somebody that I definitely feel, I feel very comfortable with.
I'd have to
Myron.
agree.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, like, if you're looking at Davi, right, you don't want to get too cute. You know what I mean? It's where you like overthink it. and you're sitting there and you're like, oh, maybe he's only going to get 3. You don't know how the fight's going to go, and it's a fight at the end of the day. Take the smart play, eat the chalk, so to speak, play Dalashvili, and just watch your score just shoot through the roof.
Sam in the chat asked about any good return on investments. Obviously you're gonna look at Davishvili, but 9,200, you're hoping he does. He can,
Yeah.
Get you 100 points. He's very consistent. When you look at him, the significant strikes, you look at his 3-fight winning streak, the loss against Ricky Samuel, you can make the argument that, maybe shouldn't be a loss the way the referee stopped that right there in the, final 10 second of the fight. He's going to get you 55 to 65 significant strikes. He had 12 takedowns in his last fight. The previous 2 fights, he had 5 takedowns in each of those fights. So, I mean, look, if he's going to get you, 2 takedowns, I mean, right, the number is he is averaging 7 takedowns per 15 minutes of fighting. If he gets 7 takedowns, he's going to rack up some serious points.
Can you imagine if Dalashvili, breaks the norm and goes out there and gets a ton of takedowns and gets a finish? He'll break the slate, and if you don't have him, you'll be on the outside looking in. So that's what I'm saying. Don't get too cute. Play Dalashvili and move on.
Yeah. Next up, we've got Andre Fili taking on Charles Jourdain. Andre Fili 8,600. Charles is at 7,600 on DK, 21-13 on the FanDuel side of things. And Andre Fili is a guy that he's another. When I think of fighters I have confidence in this week, he's one of the top of the list.
Yeah, I like Fili here. I mean, he should be able to outclass Jourdain, and the reason is he has a significant, reach advantage, a 5-inch reach advantage. He has an experience advantage as well as fighting a lot of, tough guys in the UFC, Calvin Kattar, Yair. I mean, the list goes on and on. Sadiq Youssef, and he just fought Sadiq Youssef and wasn't finished. And he had moments in the fight where he was looking great, but Sadiq is Sadiq, and, he cracks hard and has good takedown defense and can get back to his feet. But, Jourdain, I've bet against Jourdain in the past, and he has some bad tendencies. He shells up striking wise, but he does throw bombs. So one shot could always land for Jourdain, and I think he's another 7K option you can look at. Whereas if he wins, he's getting a finish 100%. I don't see him outclassing Fili to a decision. It's not going to happen. I say the likely scenario is Fili goes out there and just exposes Jourdain's takedown defense and shows that he can, put him anywhere he wants, light him up on the feet, outclass him on the feet, take him down, potentially work towards a finish. We haven't seen Fili finish a fight in a little bit, so this could be it. Now, do I feel so confident in it? No, I might be, I don't know, I'm like mid-level confidence, but I'm not like Dalashvili about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Fili, of course, straight out of Team Alpha Male. I believe it's called I think it's called King of the Mat competition, which all it is wrestling. And it's basically the prize you want at Team Alpha Male. And I think Fili hasn't quite got it yet, but he's gotten close to it. But as you know in your spreadsheet, one of the interesting stats I always look at is reach. 5-inch reach advantage for Andre Fili. So Charles is going to have to cut into that. Can he do that? But, I mean, when you're looking at those under 8,000 options, if you tell me Charles wins, maybe he catches him, knocks him out, and maybe he's in that optimal lineup.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Fili get caught before. I mean, if you continue to fight in the UFC, you're going to get caught by somebody and be a part of somebody's highlight reel more often than not. Jourdain, I don't know if he can do it to Fili, though. I think Fili's smart, and Fili has good striking, can hang with Jourdain. And if Jourdain just explodes forward, there goes a blast double. And, he could just put him right on his back. I think that's the X factor. If Fili didn't have any ground game or any wrestling, I'd probably be, more bullish on Jourdain. But 7,600, I'll have a few shares of Jourdain because if he does win, it's a knockout.
Then we got Espinoza taking on De La Rosa. Espinoza 8,500, 7,700 for De La Rosa. On the FanDuel side of things, $16 for Jordan and $15 for De La Rosa. Espinoza does have a 4-inch reach advantage in this fight. He's a slight favorite in the matchup. This is one of those matchups that I don't know if I'm going to have any shares on either side.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I wanted a piece of De La Rosa, and then I watched some tape, and the guy has a great ground game. He just doesn't go to it or when he tries to attempt takedowns, he doesn't really have great technique, like great wrestling to get it to the mat. If he spins behind you and gets on your back, of course he can get a finish over Espinoza. But De La Rosa at 7,700, I think his only path to victory here is via submission, because I think Espinoza is going to be too athletic and just outpoint him the whole fight. 8,500 for Espinoza. I'm not in love with the price. If he was 8,000, 8,200, then I'd probably be looking at this fight. But those extra couple $100 can really make a difference for your lineup. I don't know, man. I think Espinoza, this seems like a decision. I think it's a lighter weight class, 135 pounds. Finishes are hard to come by in that division. The lighter you go, the more likely it goes to a decision. 8,500 for Espinoza. I'll probably have one lineup in case he does get a slick submission over De La Rosa, but you're talking about a black belt in De La Rosa. So for me, it's basically a pass. Like, this is a fight I'm passing on, and it surprised me. I usually don't scratch out fights, but this is one of them.
Espinoza was someone who had was basically given 2 fight offers. One offer would have been to fight now 2 weeks ago against Tim Elliott. He chose not to take that fight. Of course, Brant Royval got that opportunity and goes in and wins a fight night bonus with his win over Tim Elliott. And so Espinoza elected to take this fight against Mark De La Rosa. So obviously he liked this matchup more than he liked the matchup against Tim Elliott. And we see how that went for Brant Royval. I mean, Tim Elliott, the gas tank just ran out on him. I mean, just the crazy pace that he went on. Of course, we're going to talk about Tim Elliott's girlfriend here in a little bit, Gina Mazzani, as she's making her way back into the UFC. But before we get there, we got a female matchup as you got Cyphers taking on Agapova, and Agapova, if I'm saying that correctly, I might have butchered it. 8,700, Cyphers 7,500 on DK. Over on FanDuel, $17 and $12 for Cyphers. A 8-inch reach advantage for Agapova in this one. To me, I can't recommend taking Cyphers at all. To me, it's either you take the favorite or you move on.
Yeah, I mean, it's an ugly matchup. Cypher stepping up on short notice. Agapova is the A side in this matchup. Obviously, the UFC is, a little intrigued to see what they have here in Agapova. They're always looking for new talent, and especially from other countries. That's big for them. Training now in an American top team. Agapova should be well coached in this fight. 8-inch reach advantage, 7-inch height advantage. She likes to strike, so she's going to be looking to keep it on the feet. Hannah Cyphers could look to expose Agapova if she had any wrestling at all, but she doesn't really. So if you could put Agapova down on the mat, I mean, if you look at her Contender Series fight, you can have a lot of success. And Cyphers is a strong girl. I mean, she's short, she's small, but she's strong. And she's tough. Not the most skilled, though. Probably a fight I'll mostly stay away from. If I had any exposure, it'd be to Agapova at 8,700 based on the volume. Maybe she just really picks apart Cyphers. And at this point, I kind of feel bad for Cyphers because she's just getting destroyed by a lot of competition in the UFC. She'll probably be out of the UFC pretty shortly. She's one of the 7,000 options I probably wouldn't consider. I mean, even if she does pull off, the upset, I don't see it being the best DFS score.
Her price on FanDuel is $17. Jordan Espinoza price is on $16. We got a question I want to get back to about Espinoza from Ty. He says Espinoza way better on FanDuel at $16 as opposed to DraftKings.
Yeah, I would say so. And that's a disparity right there. And I think it goes to show you how the different sites view different fighters. And Espinoza is going to look to keep it on the feet, but it can also take it to the mat anytime he wants. He has great wrestling. De La Rosa, if he's smart, is going to box into a clinch and try to take him down. And you get rewarded with, takedown defenses and submissions and submission attempts and everything. But since Espinoza is a striker, I think that's more of a FanDuel play than a DraftKings play.
Then we've got a matchup at 155 pounds, Kevin Aguilar and Charles Rosa, 8,400 for Kevin, 7,800 for Rosa on DraftKings. Over on FanDuel side of things, $18 for Aguilar, $14 for Rosa. I actually talked to Charles yesterday. He was ready for this fight to be at 45, but Kevin could not make 145 pounds. So that's why it's at 155 pounds, whether you take anything into that or not. Of course, this is a 36-day turnaround for Charles Rosa after, how he didn't submit. I asked him, I said, how did you not submit to all those submissions? He goes, just pure will. He goes, you're just not going to get me a tap. He said, he told me a story about how after the fight, all Bryce Mitchell's coaches were asking him basically, why didn't you tap, man? Is there something that we missed in terms of teaching him? But, he steps here on short notice here. A lot of the money is coming in on Kevin Aguilar. Rosa, I think the question is, how does he look after, a one-sided beatdown in his last fight?
Yeah. I mean, man, Rosa disappointed us last fight, huh? I might be a little bitter still, Jason. I don't know if it's affecting my judgment.
It happens. It happens.
Yeah. It's kind of like I'm either going to play Aguilar or I'm just not going to play Rosa. And, and maybe it's because I've already been burned by Rosa. And I think everybody listening to this show can relate to that, whether it's NBA or NFL or whatever DFS sport you're playing. There's some fighters or some athletes that, they burn you a couple times and, leaves a bad taste in your mouth. And you're like, all right, maybe I'm not going to go to that well. Rosa, should have been able to outclass Bryce Mitchell based on his, accolades when it comes to grappling. He's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt down at American Top Team, has great jiu-jitsu, very, very sneaky, goes for leg locks, goes for everything, and actually has some good wrestling as well. The problem in this matchup is that he has a reach disadvantage to Kevin Aguilar by 4 inches, but also Kevin Aguilar style, like he's going to sprawl and brawl essentially and look to keep it on the feet. And Aguilar has some crisp boxing, like really crisp boxing, good jabs, and a great right hand. And if you watch tape on Charles Rosa, he gets hit with right hands so much. He throws so many kicks. So a lot of people do is they step in and just stuff him with a right hand down the middle. I could see Aguilar actually hurting Rosa on the feet based on the power and the zip behind his punches. I'm going to have some shares of Aguilar, and I don't know if I just have the blinders on and I'm hating on Rosa because obviously he's from the same promotion I fight for. So obviously, I hope he does well. I wanted him to do well, but I'm not going there for DFS. Aguilar could surprise people at 8,400 and could be like that type of Alex Perez performance that a lot of people kind of overlooking.
Yeah, it's an interesting fight. I don't have a hot take either way in terms of it. Now, if you go over to awesemo.com and Alex has a great spreadsheet up there, you can check out one of the columns is the percentage of being in the top 6 scores. And he has Kevin Aguilar 30.7%.
See, I think because you need to find somebody in that mid-range that could go overlooked. I think Aguilar is going to go overlooked. People are desperate to find somebody in the 7,000 range that they can trust or a notable name that they know or has shown glimpses of success in the past, and that's Rosa. And I can't blame you because if he does land a takedown, he should be able to outclass Aguilar and work towards a submission. The problem is I think Aguilar has good takedown defense, and Enrique Barzola was unable to take down Kevin Aguilar. And I have to say, Enrique Barzola has better takedowns than Charles Rosa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt about that. Then we got a female matchup, Julia Avila. She is at 9,300, taking on Gina Mazzani, 6,900 for her over on the FanDuel side, $19 for the favorite, $10, for the underdog here. I talked to Gina on Monday. And so, I asked her, said, hey, how did this fight come together? And it was late last week. Julie had lost her opponent, and the UFC had given her a call. They gave her 2 opponents, and she didn't, as she told me, she's like, it didn't matter who it was. I really didn't care. It was about getting back to the UFC where she knows. She goes, in January, I was fired from the UFC. So she gets this opportunity. She is coming off a win in King of the Cage at 155 pounds fight. So now she's in this opportunity here, massive underdog. I think this is another case of you're likely looking at the favorite or you're passing on the fight.
I can't blame you, but I think these odds should be a little bit closer. And I think minus 600 for a lower level women's fight is just insane to me. I mean, we're not talking about the top, fighters here. We're looking at, a female fight, a lower level female fight where they tend to be closer than what people expect or what people think. and they tend to go to the decision, so anything can happen. Obviously Avila is the A side here. I mean, look at her fights, look at her resume. She has some very, very tough fights dating back to her early professional career. A win over Nico Montano, and she was a former UFC champ. Do you remember that, Jason? So
yes, I remember a lot of things about MMA, and that's definitely one of them.
yeah, I mean, that's crazy to say, but Avila here, I wasn't too impressed with her last performance, and I know it was against Pani Kianzad, and Panny's very tough and very good pretty much everywhere. But I wasn't too impressed. Like, I wasn't thinking that she'd come over here and have a 9,300 price tag.
Yeah.
She has good boxing, very, very aggressive when she decides to put the pedal to the metal. When she goes, she looks great. It's like, oh man, there's the potential. But it doesn't happen too often. Seems like she does have some nice judo in her back pocket, but doesn't use it too often. This should be an easy matchup for Avila. And I'll have plenty of shares of Avila at 9,300 because we have seen Mazzani struggle in the past when, things get tough and she does get finished in UFC. The Macy Chiasson fight sticks out big time. But at 6,900 for a girl who shoots tons of takedowns and will look to be pressing Avila against the cage, I will have one lineup with Mazzani. And I know that's totally wild, but if she gets some takedowns, it could work out where I could end up spending up on other fighters. But I totally expect Avila to go in there and just win from bell to bell.
The past couple of cards, it seems like every card we have a fight that gets changed on the week of the fight. And that happened here with Tyson Nam as he was supposed to take on Ryan Benoit. Now, Adeshev comes in 8,000 for Nam, 7,700 for Adeshev, $15 and $12 on FanDuel. Tyson Nam's going to be the chalk play on DraftKings. I mean, you just count it in. When this, and Pete, obviously you have some background with Tyson's opponent here. Being somebody who's covered this sport for a long time, when I see a fighter who's 3-1 in his pro career, takes a UFC fight on less than 7 days notice, red flags go off to me. And I sit there and go, okay, is this the smartest play for the fighter? You've got background information, so I know you can tell our listeners a little bit about him.
Yeah, so Zaruk Adeshev, I actually was in the same locker room with him when I fought on Bellator, and I fought right before his fight. So it was pretty cool. We were warming up side by side and everything, and I became friendly with his team and him as well. And we keep in touch. And I'm super happy for Zaruk Adeshev here. This is a crazy opportunity, and I think that's why you see him in the UFC. It's an opportunity, and you want to jump at the opportunity. But you wonder if it's a little short-sighted and you're just thinking, short-term and not long-term. I think that with his skill set and his kickboxing background, he could have been, making his way onto the Contender Series pretty soon. And I think that avenue is a little bit easier than just jumping right in, facing a guy who literally has 30 fights against Tyson Nam. So the experience advantage definitely goes to Tyson Nam. I will be pulling for Zaruk Adeshev. So he's very good. He likes to fight out of the southpaw stance a lot, throws good combinations, good kickboxing. My worry here is taking it on last minute notice and wondering how much he's been training. Tyson Nam's been basically in back-to-back camps, and he's been training for a very long time. And we haven't really seen the Tyson Nam perform to his abilities in the UFC cage. And the guy has wrestling in his back pocket where he can go there and put people down. He just chooses not to. He did shoot several times against Kai Kara France, and I was like, man, he looks good in the clinch. He looks strong. I wouldn't be surprised to see him just going for takedowns as well against Adeshev. He knows Adeshev's going to be probably very dangerous in round one, and then as the fight goes on, it probably leans a little bit towards the veteran. I think Tyson Nam at 8,000 is a very good play. I'm pulling for Adeshev. I'll have a lineup with Zaruk in there in hopes that he gets an early KO because he does have really nice kickboxing and hard punches, has some good throws as well. But I just think Tyson Nam might be able to just withstand all that and basically put it on him and, get a decision win. I don't know if a finish happens in this fight, but at 8,000, I think that's some crazy value on Tyson Nam.
I've talked to Tyson for years upon years, back when he was having his legal issue with Bellator when he knocked out Eduardo Dantas. Tyson wants to throw hands. Don't kid yourself.
No,
but you are correct.
Yeah.
He definitely, I think if you look at it as a path to victory, him taking this fight to the ground is definitely a path here. He is coming off, these back-to-back losses here in the UFC. And but when you talk to him, you asked about the Kai Kara France fight. He fully believes he got robbed. He lost a home country decision there, taking on his opponent in his home country. This is a good position, I believe, for Tyson Nam right here. Then we've got a matchup. The second fight of the night is Jordan Griffin taking on Derek Minner. Griffin is 8,900 on DraftKings, 7,300 for Minner, $19 on FanDuel for Griffin, and $14 for Derek Minner. This is a fight that me and Pete have talked a lot about, especially today. And oh man, all right, Pete, sell me.
Okay, so I mean, whichever side you go, you need this fight. I have to say, you need this fight. Somebody's getting finished. So circle this and put some Griffin and some Minner in your lineups, and balance out that exposure. But for a 7K option, I think Derek Minner looks like a nice DFS play based on his game plan. He goes out there and he's extremely aggressive for about 1.5, maybe 2 rounds, and his aggressiveness leads to him being open and, getting caught or getting submitted or getting knocked out. But I went back and I watched their first fight because these guys have fought each other. And Derek Minner was having his way with Jordan Griffin. He was taking him down and putting him in every submission in the book. He was putting on a clinic. Granted, that was a little bit ago, a couple years ago. But man, it seemed that Griffin didn't really have too many answers for Minner other than surviving. And, kudos to Griffin for surviving, because I really don't understand how he got out of some of those submissions. And I think that ultimately gassed Minner. Minner, I hope, goes out there and has a smarter game plan and works on position rather than submission. And if he does that, I think he can pose a lot of problems to Griffin. Now, that's saying a lot for a guy who has 35 fights and hasn't really shown the growth or that change in his game. But as far as 7K options, man, it's slim pickings here. And at 7,300 for a guy who in the first round probably gave Jordan Griffin a 10-8 round, and in the second round was on his way to another 10-9 decisive round until he got caught by getting too cute with submission attempts and got caught in an armbar. So Minner was literally just trying to put on a clinic and get a highlight victory, going for banana splits, calf crushers, all these crazy fancy things that are, ineffective at the high level. And Griffin capitalized and caught him in an armbar. But I'll have plenty of shares of Minner, and it doesn't hurt me to say that. But I'll also have some shares of Griffin because somebody's getting finished in this fight.
I'm always going to question someone who decides to go to the mat with Herbert Burns.
Yeah, I mean, the fight IQ is not even there. The fight IQ, he's so stupid with that. He was actually doing really well against Herbert Burns standing up, and he's just throwing bombs. I think it goes down to his gas tank and just being in dominant positions. Now, he did take Herbert Burns down, and Herbert Burns tried to throw up some submissions, and then he got out, and he was in a couple dominant positions, had him in side control and reversed some nice positions. And even in his last fight against, what's his name? The kid from Glory. What's his name? Derek Minner fought James Krause's pupil. Let me see this.
Oh, Grant Dawson.
Yes, thank you. Grant Dawson. I went brain dead for a second. Grant Dawson.
I was saying Glory Kickboxing.
No. But Grant Dawson, he had Grant Dawson in some bad positions as well. Had him, almost in a guillotine. And Grant Dawson's a very dominant wrestler and missed weight at that time. So
yeah, he did.
I think people are underestimating Minner's ability, and I can't blame you there. But somebody's getting finished in this fight, and after watching the film, I don't feel bad about putting a 7,300 Minner in my lineups.
We got one more fight to break down here before we get to your questions, but do want to let you know about a giveaway that we have going on right now where the winner is going to be announced on Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time, as we are giving away an Awesemo Plus weekly pass. There's just 2 steps you got to do. Subscribe to Awesemo on your favorite podcasting platform, and that's Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, wherever it may be. Subscribe to Awesemo, and then rate and leave a 5-star review for our channel with your Awesemo Plus username or Twitter handle, and you'll be entered to win. As I mentioned, one winner will be announced tomorrow, Friday night at 8 p.m. each time. Also, let you know about 2 promos that are expiring tonight. Get 20% off the PGA Annual with the promo code Schwab, or you could get 10% off the Platinum Yearly with promo code Summer. As I mentioned, both those offers do expire today. Now, Pete, the opening fight of the night, 2 guys making their UFC debut, Anthony Ivy and Christian Aguilera. Ivy 9,000, Aguilera 7,200. And once again, FanDuel pricing much different than the DraftKings pricing. Yeah. Ivy $16 and Christian is $14. Of course, Anthony was slated to replace Ian Heinisch when everything went down with him last week. It's not happened, and so now he's got this matchup. Kind of an easy matchup to break down, Pete, when you really think about it. Ivy, obviously, he's a guy that likes to go for submissions. Recently got his black belt. Christian Aguilera, he doesn't know how to be in a boring fight. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Yeah. He wants to go out there and he wants to throw an overhand right and uppercuts. He's going to be looking to bomb it away, and I actually think being in the smaller cage will benefit him.
It's an interesting fight. I mean, I don't know if you can avoid the first fight based on the skill level for both of these guys. We have Ivy, who looks like he has great wrestling and a good ground game and very aggressive. He'll throw shots, go back to a takedown if that doesn't work, or throw some more shots and kind of do that little GSP-esque type of approach of punching into striking and punching into takedowns and so on and so forth. Aguilera wants to keep it on the feet, wants to land hard boxing combinations. He looks so crisp standing up. I am impressed with his boxing. I really, really am. The problem for Aguilera is if he does get taken down and controlled and pounded out, but also standing up, he gets clipped a lot and he gets dropped a lot. So there's so many question marks in this matchup. Obviously, Christian's at a severe height disadvantage. So a 6'2" versus 5'9", not too big of a reach disadvantage, only like an inch or so. But I think, the long arms of Ivy and it being a smaller cage might be able to initiate more of grappling, more clinching, which is kind of where in Ivy's wheelhouse. I don't know. It's a fight I think you do need to look at and roster and circle this fight, because I think I'd be surprised if it goes to a decision. And I think whether Aguilera gets an early stoppage or Ivy goes to a decision somehow, I think you're looking at somebody in the 90-point range.
Yeah, I think in terms of pump plays, Christian Aguilera is probably one of my better pump plays, just because I think if he wins, he's going to win by knockout. Now, he has shown to get rocked and get finished. I mean, that definitely is a concern here. But when you look at those pump plays, as someone who can go out there and get you that finish, he's a guy I'm definitely going to look for in this spot. But I know one fight I watched of Anthony Ivy is when he won the Fight Fury title. So this was, I don't want to say it was about 2 years ago. He was facing definitely a striker. You could just tell he was facing a striker. And there was a lot of feeling out process. I don't think you're going to see that with Christian. I think Christian's going to come straight at him. So that's going to be interesting to kind of see how it plays out. But I think this is one of those fights. I'm with you. I think you have to roster.
Yeah, wow. Jason wants to roster their first fight, man. What the heck is going on? This pandemic and this quarantine is honestly insane. The fights are crazy. Jason's picking the first fight. I don't understand what's going on. Ivy at 9,000 is not a bad play. I like Ivy at 9,000 based on the grappling potential. If he can get past the explosiveness in the hands of Aguilera. I think Ivy has been training a little bit longer than Aguilera based on how he was supposed to step in against Mearshart. Kind of prepared him for that. The 7,200, punt play of Aguilera, it's not a bad call, man. It's really not. I think you need this fight.
Of course, this is the MMA DFS strategy show. I am Jason Floyd. That is Pete Rogers. Of course, we will be here on Saturday for Live Before Lock, but do want to tell you that this episode of the MMA DFS strategy show is presented by SuperDraft. The future of daily fantasy sports has arrived. Experience SuperDraft's exclusive game mode multiplier. Say goodbye to salary restrictions and hello to lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want and build your very own dream team. Countless lineup possibilities let you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want. Super Draft offers contests for PGA, NASCAR, and MMA, so you can enjoy the best of DFS all year round. Sign up for the Super Draft today using the promo code AWESOMO and claim a free $10 in Super Cash with your first deposit of $10 or more, or a free $20 with your first deposit of $100 or more. Download in the App Store or play at superdraft.io. Superdraft, no limits, more winning. Now, Pete, let's get into the questions that we have gotten over in the chat here on YouTube. Be sure if you want to submit a question to add that now. Also, be sure to hit a thumbs up there. Sam mentioned this question a little earlier, but we'll get to it now since we got through the whole card. Any good return on investments?
I think either fighter in the main event, I think is good potential. Being the 5 rounds, I think that both of the fighters should be somewhat elevated more price-wise. I don't think you could go wrong either way. The grappling potential of Cynthia Calvillo is what's really making me slightly lean towards her rather than Jessica Eye, but I can't fault you for picking Jessica Eye either.
Next up, Ty goes, evening, boys. Regular question of the week, FanDuel Cash Core.
FanDuel Cash Core. I think even for FanDuel, I think Dalashvili is huge. You need somebody in the main event. I'd say Calvillo. I'm big on Calvillo, but I can see why you're going Jessica Eye. I think Tyson Nam's another one. So I think Dalashvili and Tyson Nam's going to be a common chalk type of start to a lineup, and I'm fine with that. For the third, I like Feely too, but that's pretty expensive, 21. But I like Feely.
Lamar asked, for DraftKings, would you pick Vela or Davishvili?
DraftKings, Vela or I think Dalashvili. Like I said, the women's fight, the Avila didn't impress me too much. She should go out there and put away Gina Mazzani. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Mazzani just press her against the cage and really stifle her offense, and she doesn't get the best score. So give me Merabh and his potential.
Travis asks, would you take Adeshev or Roberson?
I think I'd have to say Roberson. And the reason being is the pathway to victory. And Roberson, if he wins, he's going to win by knockout. And based on his weight class, 185 pounds, those boys hit very, very hard. Whereas Adeshev, he's a 125-pounder, and knockouts are hard to come by, especially against a veteran with 30 fights, and it's your first UFC fight.
Hunter asks, what are the chances Nam goes for takedowns? 50-50?
I think he does go for takedowns, Jason. I'm telling you, I think that he will land a couple. I know he likes to strike, but if he loses this fight to this guy who's 3-1, does he get the boot? He might, you know?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think a win is more important than going out there and just striking.
Yeah, I think he's got to win. I mean, it'd be 3 losses. Even though in this current pandemic that we are in, and the UFC, they're running out of fighters in the United States, so maybe he could do, but I think most likely if he loses, he would be out. Scott asks, which fights will have the highest chance of a knockout?
Highest chance of a knockout. So let's start from the bottom. I think the Griffin Minner fight is highest chance of a finish. So let's say finish, because I think knockout, if you get a fast knockout or you get a fast submission, it's essentially the same thing. Griffin Minner fight's big. I think the Ivy Aguilera fight could surprise people as well. And then I would say, man, the Agapova fight maybe?
Yeah, I look at Ivy Aguilar. I think's high probability the winner's going to win by finish.
Yeah.
I'd look at Griffin Minner as a fight that could end by finish.
Yeah.
Roberson Vittori would be another one. I could see Marvin Vittori getting like a 3rd round TKO due to ground and pound.
I mean, the guy's angry, and he wants to go out there and really just showcase that he's so much better than Carl Roberson. And the thing is, he's not really known for his finishes, but in a situation like this, I would like to think that would change things.
Lincoln asks, how do you rank the 9K range?
Number 1 is Dalashvili for me. Number 2, surprisingly, would be Ivy, and then number 3 would be Vela for me.
Next up, Travis says great content always, guys. Appreciate that, Travis.
Yeah,
Who would be your top 3 for MVP spots on FanDuel?
Okay. Well, if Nam does keep it striking, he could put on a clinic. I think that's an interesting one. But I think Dalashvili, based on his potential, even though it is over at FanDuel, he's got to be in the consideration for it.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I think Feely too. And maybe one of the main event fighters as well.
I hate playing the first fight of the night.
Yeah.
But both sides that 16 and 14, I think you got a good chance that fight could end in the first round too. So you get that bonus for finishing the fight in the first round. I think that's a fight you got to look at for the MVP spot.
Ivy's been working on his boxing, so I think it might surprise people because you got Aguilera thinking that he's just going to be looking for takedowns, but maybe he's going to go out there and just throw bombs and know that he can hurt Aguilera. That could happen.
It could very much well happen. Of course, we are going to be here on Saturday live before lock, 5 p.m. Eastern time, 2 p.m. out on the West Coast. Of course, the prelim is going to start at 6 p.m. Eastern time on, I believe, so we on ESPN, big ESPN, we on ESPN Plus as well. I know that's Pete loves that show because all it is us sitting here answering questions. Always appreciate when you sit there and ask us questions. Of course, you can always hit us up on Twitter. I am at Jason_Floyd. He is at Pete the Heat MMA. Of course, be sure to follow Awesemo_com, also Awesemo MMA. Obviously tomorrow morning, we're all going to be watching those weigh-ins, 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. here on the East Coast where we're at. Obviously Carl Roberson, I think, is going to be someone that I'm going to be paying attention to. Does Gustavo Lopez step on the scale? That's going to be another one we're going to be paying attention to.
Yeah, I just hope that no more fights get canceled. I hope Dalashvili fights so that we can get a nice
little knocking on wood.
Yeah, right. Get a nice little free square. We don't need any more craziness happening to these cards. These cards are, some of them are ugly to begin with, and a lot of crazy things are happening. So let's get Dalashvili on the card, and I'll feel better.
Good old John Gruden, knock on wood if you're with me.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man. Oh, good old Johnny G. I had a chance to be around Johnny for a couple of years. It was an entertaining guy to be around.
Oh, I'm sure.
So I always got to, especially when you do a show and you're sitting in a 10-foot room with them, it's a very interesting time to be with them. But with that is going to wrap it up for the MMA DFS strategy show. Of course, be sure to give Pete a follow at Pete the Heat MMA. Of course, I am at Jason_Floyd.